starts in 10,
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2.
Welcome to the Last Minute Fantasy Scramble. My name is Kevin McCartney, alongside Bobby Digital Janis and Bud Stanio for another Sunday Scramble edition. Now, today we've got an exciting one, another crazy week, more COVID cancellations, a lot of big news. So, to start us off, Bobby, we want to take a look at that Thursday night football that we recapped. I want to get your take on how the Chicago Bears did that game. Bobby, how you doing today?
I'm good, man. I'm good, K-Mac. Just happy to be dealing with another week of football. This virus stuff's really crazy right now, and I don't know what's going to happen, but thankfully we still have games this week, so I'm just trying to enjoy it. As for the Bears, the last year or so, I've just been extremely frustrated with Matt Nagy and that offense. I think that a big reason for their struggles, besides Trubisky or Foles, or no matter what QB is in, is because I don't think they feature David Montgomery. I think David Montgomery is a good running back, and the fact that he only had 2 carries in the first half of that game on Thursday night is beyond me. I don't know why they're running the offense through Nick Foles. I like Nick Foles. I think he's solid, but I don't think you run the offense through Foles. I think you feature Montgomery. But speaking of Montgomery, even though he only had 10 carries for 29 yards and a touchdown against the good Bucs defense, he did have 7 receptions in the passing game. With Tariq Cohen out for the year, if that's a trend that continues, Montgomery is definitely a valuable asset in PPR leagues, and we've seen that he's more than capable of catching the ball. We saw he had a really nice back shoulder adjustment catch from Nick Foles on a third down late in that game. Allen Robinson, 10 catches for 90 yards. I mean, K-Mac, we were talking about it a few days ago. I mean, this guy is I was watching him on national TV up close. I haven't really gotten a chance to see him much individually, and he's just an incredible wide receiver. And I think if he were on a better team, a better offense, I think he would be up there with the Adams and the Hopkins and all that. I mean, right now he's still obviously a top 5 or 6 fantasy receiver. So Allen Robinson looks solid all year long. And then as for the other Bears, Jimmy Graham got in the end zone 3 for 33 and a touchdown, but he's really only used in the red zone. He's really kind of a touchdown or bust tight end option. And then the other guys, I just think they're droppable, and maybe you can roster them in deeper leagues. Guys like Anthony Miller and Mooney, they're wide receivers there. So as overall, it was so performance, and I would be encouraged about Montgomery's passing game usage going forward, and obviously encouraged about Robinson.
Yeah, absolutely. That Bears, for a winning team, they have a lot of question marks, and especially making a QB change so early on in the season, it's hard to see how things will go out from there. As far as the Buccaneers go, man, that was one of my favorite moments of the season so far. Seeing Tom Brady looking around, 4 fingers up. You know how I feel about Tom Brady. But what do you think about how the Buccaneers did on Thursday night?
I think it's hilarious with the 4 down thing. Arians even came out and said, yeah, he didn't lose track of downs. He knew. But it's like, yeah, so it was pretty funny because if you started Tom Brady, like, after he had the 5 touchdown performance the week prior, and he only gets 1 touchdown for you and throws for 253, that's kind of discouraging. But I mean, you're not always going to have a 5 touchdown game from Tom Brady. Let's be honest. I mean, normally floats around the 2 to 3 touchdown range, and he's lucky to crack 300. He does short dump off passes. That's what he's known for. And he doesn't have all of his receiving threats there right now. You have Godwin out. And Mike Evans was maybe the shining moment there. But even then, another receiver shows up out of nowhere, Tyler Johnson. He gets 4 receptions for 61 yards. And if you started Scotty Miller, you're in a not okay place right now because he didn't even see anything. So it spread the ball out pretty conservatively on throwing everybody. I mean, he hit Gronk a few times. Cameron Brate got involved. So that was rare. I mean, with O.J. Howard out for the season, I mean, that was kind of expected. And he had a couple of dump-offs of Ronald Jones. I mean, if anything, on the offensive side of the ball for them, Ronald Jones looked really good. Glad they didn't smash the emergency glass like they were saying about Leonard Fournette. They kind of let Ronald Jones roll with it. He had 17 carries for 106 yards, and he had 3 receptions for 19. He didn't find the end zone, but still, I mean, good production. I'm kind of upset that I got rid of him. I mean, hopefully they keep rolling with him as a hot hand, but also it doesn't look like Keyshawn Vaughn's going to get any work. He's hurt from that hit, the one where he fumbled the ball. His chest is messed up. So, I mean, LaShawn McCoy hasn't really even done anything. So you're kind of looking forward to that. But you kind of hope that if you're either owning Godwin or Evans, that Godwin does come back, of course, or Evans is going to get extra looks because Godwin's on the other side of the field. You know what I mean? So you kind of hope that Godwin comes back and kind of helps that offense a little bit. But Buccaneers definitely big loss for them, and they got Green Bay next week. So good luck with that. I mean, if you're having a hard time with offense, good luck for playing from behind against arguably one of the best fantasy quarterbacks this season, Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah. And skipping over that Thursday night football game, I do want to start to get into some of this breaking injury news that we have, starting with Julio Jones, who has just been ruled inactive for Sunday's game against the Panthers. Henry Ruggs III is actually going to be playing this week. That's good news for his owners to see what kind of potential he still may have. Went off to a hot start before being out with injuries for a few weeks. Raheem Mostert, he is expected to play in Week 5. Still more to come out of that. Outside of that, Deebo Samuel is expected to play in Week 5. It should be interesting to see what comes from Deebo Samuel. Marquise Brown expected to play in Week 5, and Lamar Jackson is expected to play as well. So far, out of these injury situations, Bobby, what kind of takes do you have from that so far?
Yeah, well, also, I just want to mention one other thing real quick, because I have the inactives and inactives coming on my screen right now. So I saw there's a defensive lineman in the Jacksonville Jaguars whose name is Josh Allen. And at first, I saw something that says Josh Allen has been ruled out. And I was like, what? So just for all you guys who have Josh Allen out there, I know you and Bud do, K-Mac, it's not the QB. It's a defensive lineman on the Jaguars. But, I mean, I think the biggest takeaway here is Julio Jones being out. I mean, he was a consensus, late first round pick in fantasy leagues. He's most likely fantasy team's number one wide receiver. So, they got to find other options. But, it didn't look good all week, so they probably do have other options in place. I mean, the question becomes Calvin Ridley, man. Is he? We're gonna find out if he benefits the most from Julio being on the field and attracting that coverage and that attention from the defense, or is he a guy that is just matchup proof and can do it, put up those same statistics, with the exception of last week? Regardless of whether Julio's in or not, regardless whether he's the number one or the number two option. So that's definitely something to look at there, but a pretty solid matchup against Carolina.
Yeah, that being said, another one to mention is Joe Mixon is also expected to play in Week 5. Now, going back to Julio Jones, as a Julio Jones owner myself, I'm actually pretty happy that he's sitting this one out. You've seen every game that he's trotted out there. He just does not look 100%, and those hamstring injuries can be nagging. And when you see these guys go in there week in and week out and just keep playing on that and hurting it can't be good for them. So seeing him be able to take a week off may just be exactly what he needs. Hopefully it gives him enough kind of rest so the next time he goes out there, he could be, even if not 100%, just better and be able to make some of those plays that you're used to seeing out of him. So, Bud, what are your takeaways from these injury reports so far, and how do you think that's going to influence today's slate of games?
Man, I feel for the Julio owners. I'm not one. I have been one. And when he gets hurt and he goes out, it's a bummer, and especially when he's a first-round pick. Relating to Ridley, this is going to be a bounce-back week for Ridley, right? He was dealing with an injury last week. He didn't look right, but he was also going into really tight coverage last week, and he was targeted, I believe it was 5 or 6 times. and he wasn't able to pull anything down. Of course, he got the goose egg, but he's definitely going to see the work, especially the Julio out. But you might want to expect other guys to benefit from that, and not just Gage or Zacharias or those guys, but mainly, this might be a week for Hayden Hurst to start seeing some targets, and maybe even Todd Gurley. So I think those guys are probably going to benefit a little bit on that side. Mostert coming back is also a pretty big deal. Expect him. I won't see him getting a full workload. He's probably going to be on a limited basis. So, I mean, I'm pretty sure it's going to be a split between McKinnon, excuse me, and Wilson. So don't expect him to come out there and be the regular guy that's going to break off and run for 80 yards. I mean, if it happens, it happens. But I would say he's probably going to be something in the woods of probably 10 to 15 touches, and I mean 15 is being really generous.
Yeah, and even with him getting those touches, you might think that, okay, this may be a question whether or not I should start Mostert. But that also raises some questions for McKinnon owners. Now, with Mostert's absence, you've actually seen McKinnon become somewhat of a top 10 running back in the league. And now with Mostert coming back into the rotation here, it makes you wonder, is McKinnon going to be able to keep up those numbers? I know, Bobby, you're very high on Jerick McKinnon. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, first of all, Kyle Shanahan, we've seen since his time in Atlanta and now his recent years in San Francisco, he really tends to kind of lean on a committee anyway. And because of how much his teams run the ball, how much the 49ers run the ball, there can be more than one valuable fantasy asset in this type of offense. And so, yeah, I'm with Bud. This week in particular, I don't expect Mostert to get 20-plus touches and get the majority of the snaps. I think they're going to run more of a committee. I don't know about Jeff Wilson being sprinkled in. That's a possibility. But, McKinnon's been playing very well. And he's right now, he is the 10th best fantasy running back in PPR. That's probably not going to stand. But he's been playing very well. Last week, he got the majority of the touches. And again, Shanahan is high on this guy. We go back to it. He gave him that contract back in 2018, 4 years, $30 million. And he stuck with him despite his injuries. And he already had somewhat of a role in weeks 1 and 2 with Mostert in the lineup. He had that third down role. He definitely, while he was the starter the last 2 weeks, he definitely didn't do anything to lose the job. So I will say that I think going forward that Mostert, of course, is going to be involved. But I think McKinnon is going to be involved as well. I think you can definitely roll both guys out there, both this week as well as the rest of the season, as viable fantasy options. And, of course, I am a McKinnon owner, so, I am more high on him than normal. But I do think, looking at it from that standpoint, that they both can be pretty valuable. And, again, it's a great offense with great coaching, and the way they use their running backs is very genius. And so I think that can be an option for you if you're thinking about that, because I have seen a lot of questions come in about that situation, especially this week with Mostert and McKinnon.
Yeah, and as far as the Ravens go, I know there were a lot of question marks as far as the injury report went for them, but it is good news for them to have Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews, and Marquise Brown all ready to go. As far as that's concerned, we'll get to more injury news later. I'm not sure if we've spoken about this yet, but did want to update you on the Pats-Broncos game. That has been moved to next week. That is also going to affect the Dolphins game of next week. As far as some other potential games, that's going to be mixed around, and we're going to see what happens with that. But if you have any Pats or Broncos, their week is going to be treated as a bye, so make sure not to play any of those. Now, for the moment you've all been waiting for, we're going to break down all of these games.
Oh, yeah.
Rapid fire style. Bobby.
Waiting all week for this one.
Dolphins at 49ers. Go! I said go. You're running out of time.
Oh.
Dolphins at 49ers.
Okay, so here we go. Dolphins, 49ers. Look, The 49ers are getting Garoppolo back. They're getting a lot of guys back. I like them in a smash spot here. I am a Dolphins fan, but again, I think McKinnon and Mostert have good games. Obviously, George Kittle's a stud, so I would run with those guys. As for the Dolphins, the only one I really like is Devontae Parker. Fitzpatrick came out and said in this week that he's going to keep his eyes on Parker.
This is supposed to be the week for Teddy Bridgewater. Steady Teddy. Might want to start him. Some people have no choice. Get him in. Expect a good game from Robbie Anderson, and DJ Moore is going to be his week. Mike Davis also. Falcons. Ridley's going to get some work, and look for Hayden Hurst to find the end zone.
Another potential for a shootout involving the Falcons. You're always due for one of those. So, Bobby, next up you have the Raiders at the Chiefs. Go.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a pass-heavy game, and they're going to force the Raiders to throw the ball. If you're really, really, really desperate at running back, you could throw in Jalen Richard in a PPR league. Maybe he'll get you 4 or 5 receptions. Love CEH in a major bounce-back spot. I know he's been somewhat not as explosive as we think he is. Obviously, you start all your studs in KC. For the Raiders, definitely start Darren Waller, the baller.
All right, Bud, you have the Cardinals at the Jets. Go.
Cardinals, this is going to be the week where we find out if it's Drake or Edmonds. If Edmonds is a hot hand, he's going to take over for Drake, but that shouldn't deter you. I think Drake's going to have a good game against his former coach, Adam Gase. The receivers, Hopkins is startable. I'd get him in. Jets, virtually, and nobody is startable on this team. I would stay away from it. Crowder, if in deeper leagues or if you have to, but otherwise, don't start Bell. Wait to see what he does.
Yeah, the jury's still out to see what he does. Okay, Bobby, you have the Eagles at the Steelers. Go.
Actually, both teams in this game have good defenses. The Eagles bolstered their secondary in the offseason with the acquisition of Darius Slay. They're not a very good football team in general, but they have been playing pretty solid defense, a bend, don't break mentality. You start Deontay, you start Juju, you start Connor, but keep expectations in check. I do not recommend Ben as a streamer. As for the Eagles side of things, you bench Wentz. I don't like the matchup. You start Sanders due to the work he's getting, but you cancel expectations.
You like everybody on the offense for the Rams. The running backs is virtually a committee still right now. If you have to pick one, I go with Henderson this week. But all your receivers, Higbee, get those guys in. And Washington, Gibson is going to have a good game. Kyle Allen being there is probably going to kickstart that receiving offense, so expect Scary Terry to have a good game too.
All right, Bobby, you got the Bengals at the Ravens.
Closer than people may think. The Ravens have some injuries in their secondary. Lamar, Hollywood, Andrews, you start them all. As for the Bengals, wouldn't recommend Joey B as a streamer this week, but if you have to, he has a solid floor. Love Boyd as a solid wide receiver 3 this week, and Mixon. Don't be scared of the Ravens defense. If Mixon sees the work when they fall behind, that's the question here. They should give it to him. Get him in.
All right, Bud. You have Jaguars at Texans. Go.
So there's a lot to like here for the Jaguars in particular. I think Gardner Minshew is going to be hooking up his boys, DJ Chark and Chenault. On the other side, David Johnson might get some work. Houston's in a really tough spot right now. I mean, if you have to start Deshaun, I would go ahead for it. But the only receiver that's probably going to see anything of merit will be Will Fuller.
Bobby, you have Colts at Browns.
One of the more interesting games on the slate this week. The Colts have looked good defensively. However, their previous opponents have not been very successful. They haven't been very good, but I still think Taylor is an okay start. I would sit everybody else on the Colts. For the Browns, you start Hunt, you start OBJ, keep expectations in check, keep Dearness Johnson to see how they divvy up carries in this backfield.
All right, Bud. You have the Jaguars at the Texans. No, you don't. Giants and Cowboys. Go.
Well, are you trying to trick me? I think Daniel Jones is going to have a good game here. Throwing against the Cowboys, their defense is just hampered by injuries right now. And it's going to be a high-scoring game. So Evan Ingram is going to see a lot of work. I think he got targeted 10 times last week. I definitely start that dude. As far as the Cowboys go, same thing. They're hurt on the offensive side of the ball. You hope
Sunday Night Football, Vikings at Seahawks. Bobby, you have the floor.
Expected shootout here. Obviously, you're starting Wilson, the number 1 QB in fantasy. Smash Metcalf, smash Lockett. Dalvin Cook, temper expectations because Seattle does have a good run D. Love Justin Jefferson and Thielen to smash this week. Cousins, a viable streamer.
All right, you still have 10 seconds, so I'm going to keep on talking about our next matchup, which was pushed back to next week. Bud, I want your thoughts. Broncos, Patriots, COVID, go!
I know that I dropped some Patriots defenses that I had stashed away. But yeah, I mean, otherwise, you hope by then Cam Newton's back. That might be something to look forward to. As far as the Broncos are concerned, it's Melvin Gordon all day. Jerry Jeudy might get some work. Noah Fant's still out, man. So keep an eye on that.
It's Monday Night Football, Chargers at Saints. Bobby, what do you got?
Shootout in New Orleans. Saints still have injuries on defense. Chargers are going with a committee at running back. They have Herbert the starter. He's going to sling it. Keenan Allen seeing an incredible amount of targets. You start Allen, you start Henry. Expect big points in this one. For the Saints, Michael Thomas most likely returning. Smash Thomas. You start Jared Cook if he's healthy. And obviously Alvin Kamara is a stud. So you start Breeze as well. Expect points in New Orleans.
All right, this next one's up in the air. But as of right now, we got Tuesday Night Football. Bills at Titans. Buffalo Bud, what you got?
And I really wish this game happened, and it just pretty much throws all of our momentum in a weird way. If it happens, Josh Allen is definitely poised for another 300-yard game. Stephon Diggs is going to have a good game, and Devin Singletary's getting a majority of the work. On the Titans side of things, they haven't played in 2 weeks, so you kind of wonder if the rust is there. Can Henry do what he needs to do? And Jonnu Smith, maybe.
And that is time. Thank you for playing this week's version of Rapid Fire Fantasy Questions. Was that cheesy enough?
Yes.
All right. Bobby, any of those games you want to take a little more in-depth look into?
Yeah, and before I get in real quick, I just want to give a shout out to Buffalo Bud. With the call, I want to give him credit with the call on Antonio Gibson last week. He's been saying Gibson for the last week or two now on our podcast, and he's been looking really good, man. So got to give him props there. I mean, I kind of want to dive into that Chargers Saints game on Monday night a little bit more, because there's a lot of interesting things going on. I mean, first of all, if you have Keenan Allen, you have to just be ecstatic. I mean, the guy saw 19 targets in a game with Justin Herbert at QB. I think it was last week. I mean, that's just ridiculous. And so in PPR, of course, that's going to be even more valuable. And the fact that Eckler is out, and he may be out for a while. I mean, this is looking like potentially more than 6 weeks. And with Joshua Kelly's fumbling issues, and we know how much Anthony Lynn doesn't like fumbling, especially with it's a rookie running back. And Justin Jackson's handled the load before. We talked about it in the Tuesday podcast. Justin Jackson's capable of handling the load. They've trusted him with a full workload when their starters were out a few games in 2018. And he can catch the ball as well. And in a high-scoring game, in a game where the Chargers might have to throw the ball and they might be seeing a lot of dump-offs to Jackson, who's a capable pass catcher, I really like Jackson as a start this week, especially in PPR. And then on the Saints side, we talked about how sometimes they've seemed a little flat this year, and I think a big part of that is because Michael Thomas has been. I mean, that guy just commands so much defensive attention. He's such a great receiver. He gets open. He fits his skill set fits perfectly with that of Drew Brees. He's not a deep threat type of guy, but he's a guy that gets open, hits on slants. He has beautiful chemistry with Drew Brees. I really think that's going to open up the offense, and that means even better things for Kamara. Of course, he's been solid, but he's going to see even more space, as well as the other guys. So and Peyton's a good coach. He's gonna realize that he's going to get everybody involved. So if I have anybody on the Saints, I'd be even more excited. And this game, like I said, it could be a potential shootout. Bud, what about you? Any other games that you want to kind of dive into a little bit deeper?
In just 1 second, I do want to, touch what you said on that point, because Michael Thomas is also his yak is crazy. When he gets a catch, he's able to go and break a few more tackles and give you that extra like 10 yards or so.
Yeah.
If you play in a league that rewards, especially receiving yards, like if you get a bonus once you crack 100 yards, that's something that's very beneficial with him. So And also on Antonio Gibson, I have to start him this week because I have Aaron Jones on a bye. So I am getting him in, and I'm really hoping he shows up. So, yeah, I'm looking for good things for him. But as far as other games that I like Vikings Seahawks. You talked about it earlier. The over-under on this game is 55.5 points. So, I mean, we're expecting big things here. And this might be the week for Kirk Cousins to put up like some you like that numbers. Like, so, I mean, the secondary on Seattle is just depleted. So there's a lot of things to like there. I'm personally benching Robert Woods for Justin Jefferson this week because he's shown up the last 2 weeks and shown that he can get the receptions and get the touchdowns. He only has the one touchdown right now, but he's definitely getting the work. Him and Thielen are going to have a great game. But then if you look at the Seattle side of things, they've been playing from behind, but still winning these games.
Yeah.
And so, Russell Wilson is capable of throwing for, 400 yards and 4 touchdowns, 5 touchdowns. And he's got everybody there. He's got the, he's got David Moore, and that's not even the main guy. So you have him, you have DK Metcalf, and you have Tyler Lockett, who didn't have a good game last week, who's looking to bounce back. So there's so many options. And then, you also got Chris Carson there who gets receiving work too. So there's a lot to like in that game.
All right, the injury report continues to roll in. Sorry, Bobby, we'll get back to you in a second. Just wanted to give some updates. All 3 Ravens who were in question, Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews, and Hollywood Brown, are officially active. Cam Akers is going to be active, mixing up some things with Darrell Henderson and Malcolm Brown. Besides that, we have Brashad Perriman inactive for Week 5. And a big one, Le'Veon Bell is going to be playing Week 5. Bobby, feel free to talk about any of that or whatever I cut you off from talking about.
Yeah, no worries, man. I just wanted to say, I know, especially for Bud here, both of us being Calvin Ridley investors this year, there's a report that just came out that said Calvin Ridley said he's, quote, back at full speed after playing through an injury in Week 4. So
that sounds like an excuse to me.
And the fact that they left him off the Friday injury report, that he wasn't even questionable heading into today, is a good sign for the Ridley owners. So and I like Bud's call about potentially looking at Hayden Hurst getting more involved there. And the other thing I wanted to touch on too is, I heard a lot of people. You mentioned Le'Veon Bell being active, K-Mac. I heard a lot of people, and I'm seeing a lot of questions too about, should I trade for Bell? Should I start Bell or so and so? Look, I know running backs are thin, so you might have to start Bell, but there is a lot of other options I'd rather have than Le'Veon Bell, because that offense is just horrible. I mean, again, when it comes to fantasy football, when you look at teams coaching and their culture, that bleeds down to player performances, player opportunities, and that bleeds down, that affects fantasy football, and the Jets are just horrible. They're horrible. The coaching's horrible. They're starting Joe Flacco this week, man. Like, it's just such a downgrade for the whole offense. So, I know you might have to this week with all the COVID and all the injuries and stuff, but, man, I would really try to get Bell out of your lineup if you can, despite him being active.
Absolutely. And I just wanted to give a quick update on the Titans-Bills situation. We still do not have news yet whether or not this game is going to be played on Tuesday. However, the NFL should be coming up with a decision anytime now. They are hoping to try to make a decision before the 1 o'clock slate of games, which makes me wonder how much that has an influence of these fantasy players would pump so much money into the NFL. Other than that, they are doing contact tracing to find out whether the last COVID-19 case, which was related to a coach who hasn't been in the building within 2 weeks, whether that is related to the rest of the team, and whether or not that is going to influence the potential for this game happening on Tuesday night. Stay tuned. We will be up to date on that situation and let you know if anything changes within the next half hour. That being said, I would like to transition into your questions. So, we have Mark, who asks, Drake versus the Jets or Taylor versus Cleveland in full PPR? Bud, we're going to start with you.
Um, so we've been kind of picking on the Drake owner, and he's in a couple of our leagues because he won with him last year, and now he's at the bottom. So he's been trying to move Drake pretty heavy, and we're like, nah, you picked him, so you guys stick with him. But this is, I don't know if it's Cliff Kingsbury's lost faith in him, or if he's just not producing. It could be a bit of both. But Chase Edmonds is like sneakily getting more and more work. I picked him up in my budget league just because I was like, just in case he's able to take that opportunity. Now you hope that Drake is going to get the work here, and that's part of the question. Is it going to be him or is it going to be Edmonds? I think that this is going to be like sneakily. This is going to be his week where he bounces back though, and he gets to work, and he's really good. Yeah, but this is like your last week that you can basically see if he's able to be trusted going forward. I mean, Jonathan Taylor. He's kind of I really don't like the way he runs. He's not really putting any creativity in his runs, if that makes sense. He's not really breaking tackles too much. He's getting the work, and they're kind of putting him in there, and they're trying to let him work. But I mean, Cleveland's played some pretty good ball lately, and on both sides. But I don't know, man. I'd say I'd roll the dice and go with Drake here, just because he has the potential to blow up, especially against the Jets. And Taylor is he kind of needs to prove himself a little bit, but I would say go with Drake here and hope that he has that bounce back explosive game to keep his job.
Bobby, your thoughts on the same question?
Yeah, I'm with Bud here. I'm going to go with Kenyon Drake. Look, it's obviously been very frustrating, and but he has still seen the volume. Coach Kingsbury did come out and say, Kenyon, this is what he said, quote, Kenyon Drake, he's a dynamic back. We know that. We have to get him opportunities in space. Now, a lot of people might chalk that up to coach speak, and maybe it very well could be, but like we were talking about, this is a matchup for him against the Jets. They realize they need to run the ball better. I mean, they're not winning games anyway, and so you might want to look at that and try to fix something and try to get Drake going. I mean, I don't know what happened last year because they had Drake going they had Drake out in space a lot last year, and they had him catching the ball, and he was a pretty good pass catcher with the Dolphins as well, and haven't really done that much. I mean, part of that maybe is because Edmonds, like Bud was saying, and especially if you're a Drake owner, you want to make sure you try to have Edmonds, but yeah, I still giving him a chance. People again drafted him late first, early second. He's most likely your first or second running back. You don't want to have him on your bench, and this is the week he finally produces. I think they find a way. I think he gets it going. And if you're ever concerned about his injury, well, he did leave the game late last week, but it was just getting the wind knocked out of him. He was full practice, not even on the injury report. So you got to give Drake another chance. You have to. As for Jonathan Taylor, kind of with Bud, he hasn't really looked that good. Coming out of college, I mean, he's obviously has the skills, he has the talent, and the Colts have one of the best offensive lines in football. They are a run-first team, especially since Rivers just looks old. They are obviously trying to run the offense, do a run-first offense. But, like you said, Cleveland is playing very tough, and the Colts haven't played anybody with a good as a team as Cleveland so far. They played the Bears, the Jaguars, the Vikings, their last three. So, this will be a test for them as well. So, yeah, I would go with Drake here and just hope he has that game, which it's now or never.
All right, Bobby, this next question I will pose to you first. Tom asks, should I stack Watson and Fuller or Bridgewater and Moore?
Man, that's another great question. You know what? I would go with Watson and Fuller here, but it's close. I think the Texans, after firing Bill O'Brien this week, and that might be a spark for these players that they need. This team is better than 0-4. They realize they're struggling, and I think them being upset with Bill O'Brien kind of had something to do with that. I think they get unleashed, and I think as long as Fuller's healthy, he has that connection with Watson. He's the number one wide receiver in this offense, and he's been producing so far this season. I'm liking that Watson and Fuller stack. I don't dislike the Bridgewater Moore stack, and I love their matchup as well. This is just a matter of I think I like the Watson Fuller more. But Bud, I want to hear your thoughts on that, man. What do you think?
Yeah. So same thing, man. It's super close, right? But I kind of think that Teddy Bridgewater is gonna have like the slight edge. Um, and I think DJ Moore is finally gonna have his bounce back week. I'm hoping that he is. I've been starting him every week, and it just hasn't been there. And we know that he's capable, but if there's any time that the connection between those two is going to happen, it's definitely going to be against the Falcons. Let's be honest here, right? The defense is not that great, so it's a prime opportunity. It's just the other thing that really bothers me about Houston is I just I try to stay away from teams that especially are going through coaching difficulties. I think the Bill O'Brien firing came way too late.
Oh, 100% agreed, man.
Yeah, and uh, I've watched Houston play live in Houston a few times, and there have been games that they have lost, and I've seen them win too, but and nothing compared to what it was 2 years ago. And that team is just it's in a recovery mode right now, and but Deshaun Watson throwing to Will Fuller, that is going to be the connection. Nobody over there is either 100% or getting a majority of the work. So I mean, Kenny Stills hasn't done anything. Randall Cobb is, I believe he's banged up right now, and then you have like Aiken. But I mean, if you're looking for just a solid ironed out stack, Deshaun Watson and Fuller would be the better stack, I think. But I like Teddy Bridgewater more, but he is going to pepper the ball, not just to DJ Moore, but to Robbie Anderson, to Mike Davis. Um, so I mean, keep that in mind too. So I mean, I like Bridgewater and Moore better, but I'm biased because I'm a Moore owner. But if you're looking for that just single guy that's going to get the work from Deshaun Watson, it's going to be Will Fuller.
K-Mac, break the tie.
All right, I got to go Bridgewater and more here. I'm not too happy with the whole. I mean, I feel down the long run, Houston can work things out, and especially with that Bill O'Brien firing, I agree, long overdue. However, in this situation, you got a fresh new coach. Like things are too changing around right now. I don't trust that system. I'm gonna go with Bridgewater and more here. Now to move on to the next question. This is a variation of a question that a lot of people are asking right now, and this very well could change within the next 30 minutes, half hour, or hour long. Nick asks, play A.J. Brown on Tuesday. And I think that could go for a lot of these guys. But I'm going to pose that for you. I know it happens. It also has to do with whatever other players that they have. But I guess in general, this is a good question to have. Do you risk it?
Do you risk it for the biscuit? That's the question, right? No, it depends what kind of a situation you're in.
Yeah.
If that's your only guy, and you don't have a choice, then you got to start him. But if you have other options, or you have somebody that's playing later today, whether it's a 4:25 or Sunday night football or Monday night football, put those guys in until we know what's going on. Buy yourself a few hours at least, right? But if you don't have a choice, look, I mean, how many times has a Titans game been pushed back in the last 2 weeks, or postponed, or there's a test, or there's a coaching staff? Like, if you have a player going on Tuesday and you have a different option, I'd get him in just to be safe. If your league isn't doing substitutions, which is partly my case right now, then you have to we drafted for this. We entered the season this year knowing that you need to have a deep enough roster in case something like this happens. So you need to make sure that you have just somebody in, because getting a couple points is better than getting 0 points, right? So I wouldn't, if you have a better option than AJ Brown, then go ahead and get somebody in. And if you're able to buy yourself a few hours with like a later starting guy that's not on a 1 o'clock slate, then do that and wait and see. And if the game goes off, then obviously, yeah, start them. But if you have other options, then bench your guys on Tuesday and get somebody in there that can, carry the load. Play it safe.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it any better myself, but Bobby, I wanted to get your thoughts on it and see if it's any different.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, bud. I mean, you exactly said it. And that's a good point that you brought up about coming into the season. You kind of had to prepare a little. It's kind of had to be in your mind that there's a chance there could be some mayhem here with the virus and a lot of unpredictability, a lot of uncertainty. And I know a league that I'm playing in, we are doing that substitution rule that's going into effect for those type of situations. But not every league's going to have that, and there's only so much that we can do. And so, yeah, I mean, I would definitely lean towards playing it safe. And it also, again, like Bud said, it is dependent on your other options, depend on your roster. And another key thing I would bring up is it also is depending on your team record, your team situation, and who you're playing that week. Are you looking for you're a complete underdog and you just need a home run hitter, or are you most likely going to win anyway, and you're just trying to play it safe, and those things can factor into your decision as well. So a lot of different factors go in, but again, you said it, man. I would tend to lean towards playing it safe here.
Yeah, I agree. I guess it also depends on your matchup, but
yeah,
I think we got our answer across. So this also is going to be kind of similar kind of question, but this is a 3-parter. Bobby, we're going to start with you. Max asks, Singletary, he's scared of the positive COVID test from the Titans, or Justin Jackson or Chase Edmonds?
Yeah, so I would even go Justin Jackson here. I talked about him earlier. I think he's going to be a big part of this offense. I really do. Again, with a good matchup and a high-scoring game against the Saints, and because Singletary comes with that risk of that game, as well as Jack Moss having a chance to return here. I know Singletary's looked solid. He saw a lot of work last week without Moss, but he hasn't been anything super, super spectacular, but he's been solid. But with Moss coming back and that risk there, in addition to Justin Jackson's opportunity here, I would go with Justin Jackson. Bud?
Yes, absolutely, Justin Jackson. I mean, Singletary, yeah, definitely want him to play. I'm benching him this week, getting a different option in there, but Justin Jackson's definitely going to get some work. It's going to be a pretty much a split between him and Kelly, but Kelly has lost a little bit of trust from Coach Lynn just because of his production last week. But they're both going to get some work. And I mean, Justin Jackson's been in this offense for the last 2 seasons, I think. So, I mean, he definitely knows how it works and he's going to get the work. But Edmonds is kind of, if you pick them up, you're kind of hoping that he could take that job. I said it earlier. You kind of hope that it ends up him getting more work over Drake. We don't know that that's going to happen. That's kind of the hope with him. I would lean towards Justin Jackson though, for sure.
All right, so this next one is a 3-parter from Bryce. So I'm just going to have each of you answer one of these questions. So starting with Bud. Bryce asks, Fuller or Woods? This is all PPR. Will Fuller or Robert Woods?
Yeah, that's a doozy. I'm gonna lean Fuller in this case. Just because again, same thing I said earlier. Deshaun's gonna hook him up, and he looks healthy. Woods is gonna get work too. I don't think you could go wrong on either of these, but I think that the potential for the upside with Fuller is a little bit higher because there's a lot of mouths to feed for the Rams. Kupp's gonna get work. Higbee's gonna get work. The running backs are gonna be getting work. I mean, there's really not a whole lot else other though on the Houston side of things taking away from what Fuller's gonna get. So I lean Fuller in this case.
All right, Bobby. We have David Johnson or Todd Gurley.
Ooh, that's a really tough one. I think I would go with DJ here, because I think he's going to see more passing down work, and he's seeing a higher percentage of he's on the field for a much higher percentage of snaps than Gurley is. Gurley just looks old out there. He looks slow, and they're not getting him involved in the passing game. And even though he's a capable pass catcher, and he seems to just be a touchdown or bust option. With DJ, I'm not super excited about him either, but he is going to be a big part of their rushing attack and their game plan. And like I said, he's more capable of catching passes. So I'll lean with DJ here.
All right, Bud. You get to pick one of these guys with Derrick Henry potentially being out. Devonta Freeman, Le'Veon Bell, or Darrell Henderson.
Do I have any other choices?
I say just roll your dice with Derrick Henry and just. But I think this kind of situation is one of those substitution situations.
Yeah.
So if Derrick Henry doesn't play and you got to choose between any of these guys.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's so tough, right? Because you have, Freeman. I mean, he hasn't really done much. He just showed up a couple weeks ago. He's there. He's getting some carries, but he's not a startable fantasy option. So let's just throw him out, right? Le'Veon's just coming back off an injury. We don't know what it's going to be. Who knows what kind of trickery Adam Gase has up his sleeve. So, it might not even be a work. Like, yeah, okay.
How is
so
he still
Bell's,
the coach?
Dude,
I don't want to get started. That's a whole nother podcast, man. Seriously.
Hey, let the Jets do what they're doing right now.
Let
okay?
the Jets jet.
So sorry if you're a Jets fan, but you know what? You got some problems to figure out. But so Bell is starting. He's worth a stash. Even though you might have him as you probably draft him as your running back too or something. But what's to say if Frank Gore doesn't get a majority of the work, even though he's starting, just because Adam Gase is going to Adam Gase. You got to go Henderson here, just because we know that he's getting the work. Cam Akers is probably going to be on a limited basis, so I don't see him eating into the committee share too much. And Malcolm Brown really hasn't been able to get going since he had that monster week. So I still think it's going to be Henderson. If you can't start Henry, Henderson's probably going to be your best bet. I'd stay away from the other two guys, right?
All right, Bobby, we have this one especially for you. Mostert or McKinnon?
Wow, it's one or the other. Oh man, I guess I'll say McKinnon because I have McKinnon. I mean, Mostert. Look, we talked about it. Mostert's coming off the injury. Shanahan's a smart coach. Mostert's going to see playing time, but I would think he's going to be limited. We know McKinnon's going to be a part of this offense, even when both are fully healthy. It's close, but I would lean McKinnon for those reasons. But I think both are going to produce in a good matchup against Miami.
All right. So we just have time for a few more questions. Tom asks, traded Gurley, Melvin Gordon, and Robert Tonyan for Aaron Jones. Is that a good deal?
Oh, man. Oh yeah! You smashed that accept button. Are you? I love the 3-for-1s and Aaron Jones, man. He's a top 5 fantasy running back. I mean, that's my gosh! I'd be ecstatic about that deal. Yeah.
All right, so that was an easy one. Moving on to the next one, Bud, from Joey, we have Greg Ward versus Pitt, Devonta Freeman versus Dallas, or Golden Tate versus Dallas. Full PPR. You get all these ones.
All right. Give me the options again one more time.
You got Greg Ward versus Pittsburgh, Devonta Freeman versus Dallas, or Golden Tate versus Dallas.
I'd say, man, that's a doozy. Well, Freeman's out. I'm not messing with that. So you know what? Give me Golden Tate. I like that. Just because I think Daniel Jones is going to be throwing the ball a lot, and Dallas's defense is kind of wrecked right now.
Swiss
so
cheese.
you kind of Yeah, pretty much. That's going to be how the coverage is going to be. Golden Tate is a scrappy guy, as we saw last week. So, but I expect him to get some receptions. But, you know, also kind of temper your expectations a little bit. I think Daniel Jones is going to be throwing the ball to a lot of guys. So, you know, don't be surprised if Ingram's getting a lot of targets too. But I think Golden Tate is probably the better option here. Greg Ward is part of the carousel that's on fire, spinning around at the wide receiver core of Philly. So I mean, he gets work too, but it's hard to trust or hard to lean on. This is Daniel Jones's week though, so I would go ahead and lean towards Golden Tate.
All right, so we have one other question, but I'm going to ask this one to you as well. You have to sit one. Miles Sanders, Joe Mixon, Mike Davis, or J-Rob? This question comes from Kevin.
Damn, Kevin, I want your running backs. Wow. That's
Nobody else does. Trying to trade him away. I mean, Kevin is trying to trade him away, I hear from this question.
Oh, man, I don't know.
It's tough, right?
Yeah, no, I'm thinking. Good. I own all these guys except Mike Davis, but Mike Davis is a system running back, and the system's working for him. Yeah, I don't know.
Am I
if
crazy
had
for
to-
sitting Sanders? He's going up against a tough matchup.
Yeah. I think you might have to. I would start the other three over Sanders, just because Mike Davis is going to get a good amount of work. James Robinson's for sure getting the work, and Mixon, just off of last week. Now, the one thing that the Ravens do have difficulty with is when there's these short dump off passes to the running backs, and Mixon did that last week, and he's running to, and we know that he's going to get the work. He bounced back last week. It's there. The volume is there. Sanders kind of disappointed us last week. He has a tougher matchup. I go ahead and I bench Sanders and start the other three.
Man, I love using this platform for my own personal gain. That's the only reason I got into this in the first place. So, before we run out of time, I want to take a look at the breakout player of the weekend. First, going back off of our last show with Thursday Night Football, we had a doozy. And by that, our winner only outscored by, I'm not good at math, but I think it's 2.8, 2.6, something like that. The way we run things here with our breakout player of the games, we take a look at ESPN's PPR projections, see how they rank, and we try to make our projection of which player we think is going to have the biggest breakout performance and score that much more than their ESPN projections. And the winner last week on Thursday Night Football was Bobby's projection with Cameron Brate, projected to get 6.8 points and scored 9.4. So congratulations to Bobby. You got your first win.
I mean, it's an ugly win, but I guess a win's a win.
That being said, I want to take a look at this weekend's slate of games. We're going to leave the Tuesday game out of it for now, just in case that still plays. We will actually be reviewing that on Tuesday's show. So, Bobby, who is your breakout player for this weekend?
All right, so this was actually somewhat of a hard one for me to think about, but I am going to, and I said this guy 2 weeks ago, I'm going to go with Hollywood Brown. Look, he's just been flirting with the touchdowns. He's been teasing us. He was missed on 2 wide open touchdowns 2 weeks ago on Monday night. He would have had 120 yards and 2 tutties. Last week, he was tackled at the 1-yard line. He's seeing between 7 and 8 targets a game. You think it's only a matter of time before he and Lamar connect. It's not Brown. Brown looks amazing out there. Cincinnati isn't a matchup to be scared of. Cincinnati does not have a very good secondary, and we know that Brown has boom potential. If you have Marquise Hollywood Brown, you start him because you don't want to have him on your bench the week he goes off. He's bound to go off eventually. So Marquise Hollywood Brown projected 13.6 fantasy points this week. I'm going to say he smashes it over. I think he's going to get in 25 to 30 fantasy points. That's my pick.
All right. Just want to take a look over at John's pick, who is not here with us today, but he did pick Justin Jefferson. So be on the lookout for him as well. Bud, who is your pick for Breakout Player of the Weekend?
If you haven't guessed, I've been talking about him quite a bit. I think it's going to be Antonio Gibson this week. He's projected for 13 points. He's going to get over that. Let's be honest here. He's, last week he ran for 46 yards and a TD, only on 13 carries. But the receiving yards, he had 4 catches for 82 yards. If you're in PPR, man, that's something you love, right? You can't deny the greatness there. But also the Rams defense is kind of weak against receiving running backs. They're allowing the 10th most receiving yards to RBs. So he's definitely going to have considerable numbers this week again. He's projected for 13. I'm going to say go ahead and give me 20 on Antonio Gibson this week.
All right. And that brings it down to me. And I love him this week going up against an absolutely atrocious defense. We talked about him a little bit on Tuesday as a potential pickup at the quarterback position, but I'm going with Teddy Bridgewater. I feel that his matchup, his hot performance from last week, expect big things out of him this week. Only projected between 16 and 17 points depending on your league, but I'm expecting him for going way off more than that. We'll see what happens, but Teddy Bridgewater is my pick as the breakout player of the week. So, as far as that goes, we have time for just a few last thoughts. As the injury reports continue to roll in, we have not much new in the way of updates. D.D. Westbrook is going to be inactive for Week 5. Brashad Perriman also is going to be inactive for Week 5. Still no news also on this Titans-Bills game. We're still on the lookout for that, so please keep an eye out. We only have 30 minutes until kickoff, and a lot can change in those 30 minutes. If you start to see this game is going to be canceled, which one positive connection to the guys who are going to be out in the field can cancel that entire game, be ready to go after those replacements. Bobby, what are your thoughts on any of this and this stuff changing?
Well, I mean, like I mentioned from the beginning, guys, just first of all, just enjoy today. Enjoy that we still have football right now. There was a chance that the season wasn't even going to start. I mean, I know it's in the realm of possibilities that I hope not, but there may be a chance the season gets canceled or hold off. So just enjoy the football now while it lasts. Have fun with it. Enjoy it. And like Bud said, you draft for this. You draft depth for depth. Just try to be smart and try to be smart with your players. And again, we said try to maybe lean on playing it safe, but you're gonna have to just continually to try to stay on top of it. Try to stay updated on what's going on because we know how sudden things can come out and things can change. So just try to stay on top of it is what I would say, and enjoy it. Enjoy football today.
All right, Bud, before we get to your closing thoughts, we do have one more question. And, Bobby, I'm going to pose this to you. Mixon or Gibson?
Yeah, I'm going with Joe Mixon still here. Look, I love Antonio Gibson. I love what he's done. But, again, I'm a believer in Joe Mixon. I'm high on Joe Mixon. And we saw in a good game script against a lesser opponent when the Bengals were ahead what they did with Mixon, but they started getting him involved in the passing game with 6 receptions. He's more than capable of catching the ball. So the question becomes now, when they fall behind, which they very well might do against Baltimore, will they go with Mixon? They've had Bernard in those situations the first 3 weeks of the season. I think that Zach Taylor finally sees that they need to get him the ball in space. They need to feature him both in the run and the passing game, no matter the game script, and I believe that he will do that moving forward. And if he does do that moving forward, Mixon is a matchup-proof RB1. I believe in Mixon. Give me Joe.
All right, Bud, you have 20 seconds. Same question to you.
Yeah, if you have the choice between Mixon and Gibson, definitely Mixon. Even though I said that was my breakout guy, I don't have a choice. I do have to put him in for Aaron Jones. He is my RB3 because I have some injuries. But yeah, definitely Mixon over Gibson here.
All right, so that about wraps it up for today's show. I want to thank each of you for tuning in today, asking your questions. We're glad to answer them. And for Bud Stanio, Bobby Digital Janice, I'm K-Mac. Thanks for tuning in. Good luck in fantasy this week, unless you're playing me.